Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great. How are you?
Best I've ever been, folks. 75 degrees in Mobile. I am, as I've said many times on this podcast, a better person when I am in sunny 75-degree weather. I'm just a better person in that type of environment. Bradley, thank you for having me down here today. Your hospitality has been endless. It's been gracious.
This is a good session because you're not leaving today.
Correct.
So we can kind of really, I don't know if ruminate's the right word, but
100%.
We're not rushed.
100%.
And actually, I told Laurel last night.
What's that?
Yesterday was the first podcast session in 6 years that we did not get behind one time.
No, you're right.
We were on time all day, so it's taken us 6 years to figure it out.
Well, that's on me, and I will say, even yesterday, I have this Samsung watch on now that if I look at it, it tells me the time, and I really have made a conscious effort to try to stay on time.
What happens if we get behind in an early episode because we stack them?
Right.
The whole day is work getting caught up.
That's right. That's right. So, Bradley, last night, story time, last night at 10 o'clock, I'm on the phone with Dr. Stephen Britt. Shout out Stephen Britt, Marshall North Medical Center. Took my appendix out about March of last year. Well, that was a lot of fun. So my wife has caught some type of parasite from our trip to the Dominican Republic in January. And I was told at 10 o'clock last night on the phone with Stephen Britt, three-way call with my wife, that if we can't figure out what this is, we're going to need to schedule an appointment with a gastroenterologist at UAB Medical Center that specializes in Caribbean diseases. Let's wrap your head around that a little bit. That is a true story. He really said that. He's like, I can get you in with him.
The fact that they have that, you probably just shouldn't go to the Caribbean.
Well, Dominican, I did a little research before I went down to the Dominican, and of all the Caribbean islands down there, the Dominican has the worst water and sewage situation going on, and they are the leader in the clubhouse in the Caribbean for parasites, uncooked food. I will say this, Bruce Payne in my office and his wife went down for their, 20-year wedding anniversary to the Dominican Republic. And while they were there, they went like 3, 4, 5 months before we did. He comes back and he's like, oh yeah, Tammy caught Montezuma's revenge while we were down there and she stayed sick the whole time. So I'm just telling y'all, if you're going to the Dominican Republic, of all the places I've been to Jamaica, I've been to Key West, the Grand Caymans, I've been to all these, Costa Rica. You better forward you some bottled water down there before you head on down, because there is a very, very, I Protect Insurance is batting 2 for 2 in the Dominican Republic for getting sick. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Guys, we have an all-star guest and one of my favorite people in the world on this podcast today. A few episodes ago, I made the comment that if I had one person in my life, one person that I could call if I had something really, really important that I needed to talk to somebody about. I'm talking like, hey, I need some real advice. This is the man that I would call, because he is just, number one, such a giving person, such a smart person, such a thoughtful individual. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I'm not even going to give him an introduction. He is the podcast host of one of my favorite podcasts in the world, the Keep Hustling podcast. You see him all over social media. He has done probably as good, if not the best job of any insurance agent in America of staying out there in front of people, and does a much better job of scheduling podcast guests than Bradley does, because he's had some huge names on his podcast in the sports and entertainment world. I don't know how he's pulling that off, Bradley, but he's
New York, baby.
New York. And ladies and gentlemen, here's another thing I'd like to announce. Today, live on this podcast, before I bring him on, I want to say this. We now have a Delta direct flight to New York, and so he and I have decided I'm going to start spending 6 months in his New Jersey office as a producer, and then he's going to come live with my house with my wife and I for 6 months in Alabama. So we're just going to start doing this 6 month on, almost like a secondary residence in Las Vegas type thing we got going on here. So now that we can fly direct back and forth to each other from Huntsville to New York, LaGuardia
It's probably
Airport.
not that long of a flight either.
It's really not. It's like
hours.
three, I think 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. So really excited about that. I'm building a guest room master addition on the back of my house for him right now. He's been involved heavily in the design of that. But ladies and gentlemen, my friend and a brother from another mother, Mr. Aaron Gordon. How are you, Aaron?
I am extremely overwhelmed. First of all, I want an introduction, but that's fine. I deserve a third one, but that's fine. I'll still try to play like a champion. Bradley, you know there's zero chance that I'm going to Huntsville, Alabama. Like, I mean, Mobile was enough for me. I don't want to say zero chance, because obviously anything that Scott asked me to do, I will do, and I will do in a second. Because Scott, I feel equally about you as you do about me, even though I actually mean it. But I mean, well, let me say this. I'm going to say something that's gonna, just to open this up, it's gonna absolutely blow the minds of all the podcast listeners. Mm-hmm. Scott, do you have a Foosackly's in Huntsville?
What is that?
That's what we ate for lunch yesterday.
Bradley.
Oh.
Bradley, were you ready for that?
No.
You were not. No. Now let me tell you something,
we
Scott.
We don't have a Foosackly. I don't even
know. So now let me tell you something, Scott.
I'm assuming it's chicken finger place. Okay.
Now I'm strictly kosher. I've never had the chicken fingers, but I just want to tell you something about Foosackly's. And this, Bradley, stop smiling. I can see you in the camera. This pains me to say. This is one of the most painful things that I've ever uttered with these lips from New York, with the New York Risk Advisor twice on my chest, once on my chest, has ever uttered. The greatest Diet Coke I've ever consumed in my life was from Foosackly's.
He comes in here all
Mobile,
arrogant
Alabama.
with his New York, Northeastern, like there's no way.
There's nothing better than blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they do a lot of
Scott
there.
Howell, I'm going to tell you why. But by the way, the most southern thing about this, Foosackly's, and by the way, they should send us swag or something.
Sure.
So I spent the day with Bradley and Mobile, which I know we'll probably discuss further, but we get these Diet Cokes. Now, first of all, in New York, we don't have anywhere where you can get a real good Diet Coke in a styrofoam cup still. So first of all, I wasn't ready for that. Shelby arrives, bam, styrofoam cup. Perfect. I don't get ice in my fountain sodas because that's a waste of space. And if it comes out, if it's too sweet, that means there's something wrong with the machine. And if it's warm, that means there's something wrong with the machine.
Right.
Scott, this is one of the greatest things I've ever consumed in my entire life. The perfect size straw for the large cup, styrofoam, the styrofoam that's wider at the top and gets narrower at the bottom so it still fits in the cup holder.
I understand. So Aaron, let me explain what's going on there. Now, if you know much about alcohol, there's an old saying from back in like the 1800s that I learned when I lived in London, that the closer you get to Ireland, the better the Guinness is. Okay.
Yeah.
Guinness is the beer, the beer Guinness.
100% true.
Speaking of, here comes the Starbucks. Thank you. You're the best. Thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to say this.
By the way, that would have been amazing if those were Foosackly's.
Yeah.
Like totally. Shelby has no idea. Bam. There's the cup.
Your mind would have been warped after that. So here's what's happening, Aaron. The closer you get to Ireland, the better the Guinness is. And that is a real thing. That is, I'm not making that up.
So the first Guinness I ever had in my life was in Ireland.
Right. So
and I came back here a week later because it was so good and went to Callahan's, and I was like, this isn't
the same
not
thing.
By the way, I don't drink beer. I've never been able to acquire a taste for it, but Guinness I like. There's something about it. It's a less beery beer, even though it's like the OG. There's something, you know.
Listen, I don't even know if I would put Guinness in the beer category. I don't even know where you put that in beverage category.
It's like the unsophisticated version of an espresso martini.
100%. Yeah, it's not really beer. Anyway, I think what's going on here, Aaron, is you do know that Coca-Cola is manufactured, bottled, whatever in Atlanta, Georgia. That is the home base. Atlanta, Georgia is the home base for Coca-Cola. And I bet you it's kind of the similar thing. The closer you get to Atlanta, the better the Coke is because, you know.
I thought there was actual Coke in there.
Exactly, like it was in the 1800s or whatever.
I think people say that about McDonald's, but Foosackly's is very popular. There's a ton of restaurants here, and there's a Coca-Cola here. Like Coca-Cola United is based in Mobile, which is a subsidiary, and I think because they spend so much, they just have some crazy contract where they can control the syrup or something.
There was a little bit more syrup. It was a little more. It was a little more. There was more flavor. The whole experience of being in Mobile was a trip, but the experience of having that Diet Coke really it was life altering.
The straws are bigger,
Right?
But they're bigger, but they go down to the bottom. You don't have to tilt it as much. There's a lot of, but they're not too big. There's like this boba tea thing, and then you get the straws that are enormous. Yeah. So I know that all the listeners wanted to hear us talk about Diet Coke today.
Can I ask you both a question? When you came down here, because you have to eat kosher, right? And you're in Mobile. Was there any place? I mean, what did you do? How did you eat down here? Because I don't know of any.
Tell him how many Jewish people there are in Mobile.
I think there's 5.
I thought you said there was 2.
No, I'm just kidding. I think there's 2 families. I think no.
Yeah, but it's like
we met that rabbi's 2 kids.
What did he eat?
The rabbi and his wife.
So great story. First of all, let's if we're gonna do the Aaron Gordon and Mobile thing, like or Mobile, Mobile, right? Is that what you're supposed to say, Bradley?
Mobile, yeah.
Mobile. You're just supposed to run through it. I would like to begin by saying that Scott, as my witness, if they come for me, because I may or may not have put my fingers on Bradley Flowers' firearm, I expect you to bail me out of jail. 100%. He's going to be there next to me.
I'll be there. I'll be there with federal.
He's going to be on like federal death row, and they're going to bring me in because, honest to God, Scott, I am not joking. As a joke, I land. Bradley picks me up in Pensacola. We get in the car. We drive. It says, "Welcome to Mobile." First of all, the insurance agent driving the car that's self-driving. He's doing all this crazy stuff. We got to talk about that. And I just, as a joke, say, "What happens if we see a bear?" And Scout's honor, I have a picture of this. He opens up the center console. We didn't even go glove box here, Scott. Okay.
Why would you do glove box? You can't get to it there.
Right, exactly. And he goes, "Oh no, we're good." And now sitting next to me is a loaded firearm.
Right.
It was not chambered though. I don't chamber my
guns.
Oh,
can I tell the end of the gun story or no, bro?
Yeah.
So I then cover my hand with my sleeve because I will not be incriminated by Bradley Flowers.
Sure.
But then to fast forward to later in the day, I had the privilege of spending some time in the Flowers on the Flowers estate.
Sure. Right.
On the Flowers estate. It's not a home, it's an estate.
That's right.
I didn't get to meet the staff. They were in the guest house in the staff quarters.
Yep. It was between lunch and dinner, and they'd already cleaned the house.
Exactly, they had already cleaned everything up. Exactly.
Hey, Bradley, you know what you need? You need a huge wrought iron self-opening gate where you just push a button at the driveway entrance, and then there's this big. You get this like monogrammed, flowers.
Just a big F. Just a big
F, and then you
that
hit
opens
this
up
button,
halfway.
You hit this button above your visor, and the 14 or 18 foot gates just open like.
And by the right inside is a guard. It's like a little guard booth
shack,
you can buy on Amazon. No, little guard booth. Nobody ever sits in it, but they think you have security. Anyway, we digress.
I will run.
So later, I say to Laurel, gem of a person, incredible host.
Oh yeah,
really just let Bradley and I just sit out and drink bourbon when she was like. She was minding
She
the
was
kids.
in there fighting for her life with the kids.
She was
Aaron and I were
what do we say?
drinking-
Minding the kids.
Aaron
keeping
and I
the
were
kids, whatever she was
drinking
doing.
Pappy Van Winkle on the back porch.
And
the
Luke's in
back
there
porch.
going, I want some more oatmeal.
Yeah.
But I said, Lord, this is insane. Your husband, he has a firearm in his center console, and I almost touched it. And she says, "What are you crazy?" And in her like purse,
Yeah.
she,
Sure. Yeah.
I got one, and there's always one in the chamber.
100%. Yeah.
And I'm like, I said a bunch of prayers. Immediately, I was like, this is, by the way, Bradley, you want to make it big? That could have been a sick horror movie. You get a TV crew in there, you guys murder me in the middle of the night, take the Jew, put him out. Oh, there's the Bears. Oh, one Jew that came to Alabama. Boom.
We
So
thought he
Scott-
was a bear, but he was in bed.
We didn't know. He had a beard. But Scott, to answer your question, there is an incredible Jewish organization called Chabad.
Okay.
It is a sect of Hasidic Jews whose mission it is to spread Judaism throughout the world.
Okay.
So there are these what they're called emissaries. They don't necessarily Judaism doesn't do we don't proselytize, so it's not trying to recruit people to convert.
Sure.
But if there's a Jew somewhere, they want to make sure that they have religious.
The word, what did you say? They prophet. They. What was
I think
the
it's
word?
proselytize is
Is
trying
that
to get
like
people
a?
to
Is that
convert.
like a? Is that another term for the word host? They're like a host family.
No, I'm saying the opposite. Meaning they are a host family, but they don't Judaism. It's not like a recruiting tactic to have these people around the world. That's if there's a Jew, if there might be a Jewish person present, they want to make sure that there's Jewish life
Sure.
or holidays and that. So all 50 states have a family that lives there.
Do y'all have like a website with a map that shows who's in?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
just asking.
and literally there was one great rabbi that said there's two things you can find anywhere in the world: Chabad Hasidim and Coca-Cola.
There you go.
But and so I looked up the one in Mobile. We went to this person's house, which is also doubles as the synagogue, and they had these like prepared meals, which we got. It was very nice.
Did you just show up at this guy's house?
We just made our way
You're
through his
kidding.
fridge.
Yo, did,
Yeah,
We just opened his fridge and he wasn't there.
you
And his
didn't
freezer
call
was all
first?
wrapped.
You
He
just, what?
called. Yeah, he called.
Oh,
I had
was
called
gonna
and said I
say-
was going to be in town. He actually told us that he was going to be out of town. If you remember
Gotcha,
around this. But
gotcha.
the interesting thing was his kids were like doing homeschooling there because they were
Right.
getting a religious education, and it was great. They're really all over the world. Like you talk about vacationing in Dominican Republic. Great way not to get parasites. Eat food from the rabbi, not from the hotel. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes,
Maybe you should
yes.
just become Jewish for a day.
I would love that. By the way, I have always been intrigued by the Jewish religion. I want to learn more about it. I have slow played you with questions, and I throw them out there very occasionally because I don't want you to think I'm weird. But I have always been intrigued by the Jewish religion, and I want to learn more about it.
Hold on a second. So in all the time that I've known you, that's what you think would make me think you're weird?
Well, no, but I'm just saying,
I'm just trying to.
I'm trying
I'm
not
trying
to be weird because you and I will be eating dinner somewhere, and I might ask you one question.
Yeah.
Like, I have like a one question minimum because I don't want to sit there and just, for you to be like, this guy, what the hell?
Tell him about when we walked into the Chabad house and you started speaking Hebrew to the kid.
Oh my
and
God!
he
this kid was
reacted like
freaked out.
He has never had anyone else in Mobile, Alabama, other than his family, speak Hebrew.
Did
and
his
he's
eyes
like,
get as big as
yes.
saucers?
Yes.
He was like, "Oh my God, are you the Messiah?" No, he didn't. Say that would have been awesome. He's like, "Grab your bags, kids. We're going to Jerusalem."
So I'm on a Zoom call with Aaron about a month ago with another Jewish person from the New York area, and Clint was on the call as well as a Zoom. So we were kind of like we are right now. Everybody could see each other. Well, except
This
the
is
other guy
amazing,
was
by the
not
way.
on.
This is amazing.
Was
I
not
know
on
what he's about
video.
to say. This is the best thing ever.
They start going like rapping Jewish, and I'm just sitting there like I have no clue what the hell they're talking about right
They're
now.
talking about you, of course.
And the way they would do it was really odd because they would speak English
he just called you odd, Aaron.
like well for me because I'm in Alabama, but it was
Shocker! Jews being called odd by a guy from the South. I don't know.
like you're gonna get me canceled before we get off this podcast. So like 3 words would be English, and then they would pop in there with about 6 words of Jewish. Of Hebrew.
Some people call that Hebrew. Some people call that Yiddish. But fine.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it Jewish.
And then
for now.
they would pop back into English, so it was so bizarre because
No,
I'm
but I'm
like,
gonna honestly the reason why I you and I have discussed this, but I think it's an interesting thing about business in general, not to make this podcast actually serious, because I know that this is just supposed to be lighthearted, because that's what we're doing today. I think that that conversation was super fascinating, because here's a Hasidic Jew from New York who literally got an intro to Clint, and no disrespect to either party, but if you would have seen these two people next to each other,
Right.
Yeah.
and by the way, it wasn't like he opened a business next to the iProtect office and like looked
Sure.
for the closest agent. It was amazing marketing on Clint and Scott's part. And this guy is not a small fish, by the way, in the pond. And like, and so I thought it was my whole idea in the call was not only to obviously help out anybody I could, but I thought it was like some level of legitimacy. Like, hey, here's this random Jew who like is not is like I'm like a very practicing Jew, very similar to this guy.
Right.
And I just thought it was really funny. I think at one point, Scott, Clint asked you if like things were going south. Like the way that we were like intensely talking to each other or like
Exactly.
somewhat arguing. I think Clint got nervous that like
Right.
one of us was about to hang up on the Zoom call, but it was really just an intense conversation, I guess, for a first conversation. But you know, I mean,
It's a good lesson for prospecting because, 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, I mean, you open, let's say, obviously it's an insurance podcast, so you open your insurance agency and your market was a 10 to 20 mile radius around that market. And there's a lot of people still operate that way, but with social media and online and Facebook groups and SEO and all the stuff I mean, could you imagine like how much harder this job would be in the 60s, 70s? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like and that's why I sort of like I have competitors here that I know that like have no idea that I have a podcast.
Right.
And that doesn't hurt my ego, but what it hurts me is that like you don't even know like what's going on in the industry.
Right.
And by the way, I'll give you another piece. What about the people who like? I know that I think the three of us are the same in this. We don't say no to any business.
Right.
If someone says, "Hey, do you
Give or
write
take,
business
yeah.
in North Dakota?" I don't know off the top of my head if we insure anything in North Dakota right now, but my answer to them would be yes. Any agent who says they're not willing to get licensed in X state,
Sure.
like you have access to a wholesaler, to an MGA who can write business anywhere.
Exactly.
Even if one of
Exactly.
your direct markets won't open you up in said
We
state,
had-
you have a way of getting it. So this guy calls, his properties weren't even in Huntsville.
Yeah.
It was the most random thing. And
Yeah.
that just shows also that when the opportunities come your way, you also have to grab them. And yes, some people say, oh, that's dishonest because you don't really write. It's not something that's outside of our area of expertise just because it happens to be a hotel in place X versus hotel in New York.
Well, to
Or
your
vice
point,
versa.
Aaron, and to Bradley's point, what it does when you, I guess I'm tooting our own horn here a little bit, patting ourselves on the back. It takes you from a pond to the Gulf of Mexico in terms of opportunity, right?
Is that the Gulf of America yet?
I'm sorry, Gulf of America. My bad.
How could you?
My bad.
And you think
Gulf
I'm
of
going to get you
America.
canceled?
So
You
Rand
un-American.
just did a cartwheel when you said Gulf of America.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. As
By the
Bradley
way,
was saying,
there's been 0 hurricanes in the history of the Gulf of America. So I
Agreed.
expect our insurance
by the way-
rates to go down this year.
1,000%.
Hello, we should have started Gulf of America Insurance.
Yeah, I know, right?
0 claim history.
Yeah.
Exactly.
0 loss ratio.
Exactly.
Most profitable insurance company in the history of America.
But
It's
if you think about
huge.
it, like if you're the local independent agent or captive agent for that matter, because I know we have a lot of captives that listen to this, and you're in your little bubble in your little town, and you're still doing filing cabinets, and you go home for lunch, go play golf at 3:00, and you're not expanding your reach. And as Aaron's talking about, I'm the exact same way. If the juice is worth the squeeze, baby, we'll be happy to go get a insurance license in Wyoming. I have no problem with that. Now, I'm not going to do it for a $200 renter's policy, but if you want to bring me $1 million worth of business, shit, I'll get licensed in Canada if I need to. I don't care. But
But that's what I'm saying. Meaning, like, I'll give you just not to again make this too much about insurance because we wouldn't want to do that. But like, we have an insured who is one of our largest insured that opened a warehouse in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not licensed in Canada. One of the carriers that we work with that writes the policy said, "Hey, the easiest thing here probably will be we'll introduce you to a local agent.
100%.
You work out some sort of commission agreement, and you'll figure it out. So the client says to me, well, I didn't know you did business in Canada. And I was like, of course I do business in Canada.
Yeah,
I don't
all day.
And again, by the way, I think that there are and Scott, I think you'll agree with this, not to contradict you, but it's okay wanting to be the person who's just that local,
sure.
Oh, it's
two-person
fine, yeah.
shop
Yeah.
that gets it out. But if you want to grow,
Right.
and you want to be more expansive, and you don't want to just be the person who gets the walk-ins, the local captive, to sponsor the little league team and get the closest 20 businesses, which by the way is a fine living and a fine lifestyle. I'm not knocking that. Then how can you limit yourself?
Right.
You just
when
have
I
to
opened the
know-
office in Jersey, someone came over, they're like, "Oh, NY Risk, you don't work in Jersey." So what did I do? Bam, got the NJ Risk handle, got a New Jersey Risk NJ Risk hat. Like obviously it's
You
a
just
joke,
have to
but
know that your market opportunity is smaller and shrinking every day when you do that, and it's very dependent upon the market that you live in. Like, the town that I live in has two things going for it. It has a really good school system, and then there's a lot of major industry right up the road. A lot of steel mills. Alabama Power has a big plant up there. If those plants go somewhere else, we're in trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because the plants are not in the town that we are in, but the people who work at those plants that make really, really good money live in my town.
Right.
You know what I mean? You just have to know, like, it's kind of like when people say you should have one niche and that should be your niche for your agency. Like, I think that's stupid. I think that's making you very vulnerable. I think you should have several niches in your agency.
I agree.
Along with
and
some
by the way,
At
general
least
stuff.
more than a couple. At
Yeah.
least two
And
or
by
three.
the way, I don't think that you should go to again, if you want to say I'm exclusively that person, I'm going to limit my market share, that's fine. But I've said many times, Bradley, you and I have had this conversation more than once. Every time I think, hey, this is going to be my primary niche and this is going to be my key to success this year, I get a random prospect in a random industry that I never even thought of.
Correct.
And if you're just the healthcare guy, that's fine, but you have to realize that when the healthcare guy who's happy with you, when his brother asks him about insurance,
Right.
he's not going to say call Aaron.
Right.
He's going to say I'll ask my guy for a recommendation.
Sure.
And then what are you going to do? The guy's going to say, hey, do you do tech companies?
Yeah.
And your answer's going to be like, well, no, you don't be only the healthcare guy. So I think
Well, one question I get a lot too about you is, how does Aaron insure all these famous people? And the way that I explain it to them is like, you have one contact that has other contacts, and that's how you do it.
Kevin
It's
Bacon,
like somebody
7 degrees.
that knows somebody. And one of the things we shared on a previous episode with CJ Hudson Pillar was, the way that we're using Referral Radar is, if there's a lender that I want to connect with, I can go into that lender's profile and see what realtor is working with that lender that I know, because there's going to be 50 of them on there if they're doing any kind of volume. Oh, this person, okay, hey, I need an intro. Like, it's very easy to be successful in this business without really going in cold. It's just all about who you know and the relationships you build.
100%. And by the way, it's also creating that crew or that group. There was a realtor that introduced me to a lender in New Jersey, and now kind of the three of us have this little group where, hey, anything that you need, that one of us needs from the other, that doesn't mean it's exclusive, but it's like, if you come in and you walk into one of these properties, this realtor can say with confidence, I can get a lender on the phone, a loan officer on the phone, and your insurance done. You don't have to worry about it.
Hey,
Well, it's like, if you go into situations with people with the goal of building a relationship, and just have, if they can smell the commission breath, right? If you have to trick your brain, and your genuine goal is to build a relationship. I'll give you a perfect example. In January of 2019, I got to have dinner with Gary Vaynerchuk, and somebody asked me, I think it was my wife, and she's like, "Are you going to ask him to be on your podcast tonight?" And I said, "No." I said, "It's more important that he knows who I am and that we build a relationship than I shoot my shot." And 6 months later, we had him on the podcast.
Yeah. Hey,
Flex.
Aaron,
Sorry.
can I ask?
Sorry, the greatest insurance guys podcast video of all time.
Yeah.
If you're ever depressed, or you ever just need a pick me up, watch the YouTube. Or you don't even have to, the podcast was amazing, but you don't even have to watch that. Watch Gary V's face as Scott begins the intro.
Do you know I leaned over to him right before I did that, and I said something like, "Hey, I want to go ahead and apologize beforehand at what you're about to hear, but this is about to get real."
Yeah.
And I leaned into his ear when I said it, and then I come back up, and that's when I started it. I was like, "Insurance agents from around the world."
Well, what's funny is his office, the office that they do all the podcasts in, that's supposed to be his
So
office.
small.
His actual office is next door.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
It's just a glass office with a desk. So we get there, and he did a podcast with Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty walked right by us when we were in the lobby.
What?
I had
I
no
didn't
idea.
even know that.
Yeah, I had no idea who he was.
What?
Yeah, you remember the video guy that we brought up there? I can't think of his name.
I can't either.
He was freaking out. He's like, "It's Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty just walked by us." I'm like, "I have no idea who that is."
Yeah.
But he did a podcast with Jay Shetty. He left the podcast with Jay Shetty and had a meeting with another C-suite person at Vayner next door to the podcast studio. And so he's in this meeting as we walk in, and it looked, I don't know if you saw it, but it looked very contentious. It did not look like a fun meeting. And so then he leaves that and goes immediately, and you can see in that clip, he's like chewing on his fingernail, and like his brain is still on what just happened. And
Not
it
for
wasn't
long.
like warming. And then Scott goes into that, and it like completely snapped him out of it.
Yeah, it did.
You know, but for me, it was encouraging to see someone who's successful at that level, like jump from thing to thing,
He's
but
very,
still,
by the way,
but still be pissed off about the last meeting
Right.
because that happens to me. You know,
I think the best thing about him is if you like look at some of his like vlogs or some of his schedule things, his ability to just diversify in a given hour is out of control. One day he'll be on the KHP.
there we
That's
go.
right. Hey, Aaron, I have a question. Speaking of that, that was a beautiful segue. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I want to ask you today here the question that you ask all of your guests on the Keep Hustling podcast. And the question is, at the end of the podcast, what's the question? What is the best? What is it? The best piece of advice that you've ever
Your
got?
favorite motivational or inspirational quote?
I want to ask you that. What is your favorite motivation or inspirational quote?
Thank you for that. And we're going to try to keep the emotions in check. I end every episode with it, and that's do well by doing good. My father, he should rest in peace, who the second anniversary of his passing will probably be actually around when this is released, in the beginning of April. He ingrained that in me. I don't forget it, but every once in a while I get distracted from the message. And I think especially in the insurance industry, it's really easy to do well by doing good and not people feel that they have to do bad things or feel bad about the things that they're doing in order to do well.
Right.
And I don't think it's like that in any industry, because if you feel that way, then you're in a bad industry, or you're doing you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And I'm not talking about the moments where it's like questioning what you're doing, or have a question where you call a friend with advice, or it's not a judgment thing, but it's just everybody can do well by doing good, by spending time with their family, by doing the right thing, by having the right friends. You don't ever have to really feel bad about your friend group, especially in the insurance industry. There are some not great people, but anyone who's listening to this, if you want to be introduced to some good people, reach out to any of the three of us. And I know I speak for Scott and Bradley when I say, like, there's plenty of really good people in the industry. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
a guy called me who was with Bradley last week. I'm gonna leave his name out because maybe we'll talk about him a little bit. But like, you talk about people whose like lives can be changed by literally just answering a text message or a question. They can feel good about themselves and realize that, you know, the three of us are not exactly the world's greatest role models because we do a lot of crazy stuff. And Bradley carries firearms, and Scott, you know,
Carries more
just
firearms.
Just leave it there. Scott,
Scott
you
is
know.
going to get us canceled. He called it the Gulf of Mexico. He's going to get us canceled. But you know, it means a lot to me. And maybe I will say that I'll give a little teaser here. We are working on something very, very, very special at the Keep Hustling podcast.
Cool.
I haven't told either one of you about it, but you guys are going to be involved in the project.
Cool.
Because I'm going to force you to. But I think that there should be. We're 76 episodes in now, and my goal is that by episode 100, I guess I'll announce it here first. We're going to write the Keep Hustling book.
All
And the
right.
book is going to be, and my goal is to have the book be everyone's inspirational, motivational quotes and kind of write around why they explain that it's the motivational, inspirational quotes. It can be a deck of cards or a coffee table thing. And it's like, one of the things that I love about the podcast is that it's so diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the lineup for the last couple weeks. It's like, I've had the privilege of having the most random people in the world on it. I mean, I literally had a flight attendant, childhood cancer survivor, both insurance guys, a bunch of insurance people. You mentioned Adam Schefter and Dave Meltzer and working on some others. But it's
my
like,
favorite.
what?
Shlomo is my favorite.
Oh, the magician?
Yeah.
He's the best. Shlomo Leverage, he's the best. And you guys should watch his content. This is not a plug just for Shlomo, but spring training is his time.
Yeah.
Because spring training, he goes around, he does all this crazy stuff. He literally, I mean, there were people in my office who are non-believers, and a guy like had his own deck of cards. He's like, "You're not touching anything."
Yeah.
And he just whatever. He's great.
Hey,
But he's-
Aaron,
and-
I've got to close this podcast out, but before I do, I want to say one thing to you. Whatever your trip to Mobile was like, I am going to throw you into mental gymnastics, the likes of which you have never been a part of when I get you down to Pine Ridge, Alabama. It is going to be, I'm going to have a full-time video. When I pick you up at the airport, I will have to have a full-time 24-hour-a-day videographer for this trip to Pine Ridge, Alabama, because you are going, if you thought Mobile, Alabama was Alabama, and I think Bradley said it the best I've ever heard. There's the Mendoza line between Huntsville, and then a line about Mobile, and everything in between is the real Alabama. And I'm going to show you the real Alabama.
Yeah. If you
mark my words,
draw a
I know
line,
exactly what's going to happen. Bradley, are you coming?
Sure.
He wants to, but I'm telling you, I'm going to have a full-time videographer to filming
I
every
literally
bit of
have this vision ever since we've been talking about this of like we're driving up to Scott's house and like all of a sudden like the mobile home, what's her name? The crackhead?
Crackhead Christie.
Crackhead Christie's mobile home just drifts. Scott, it's like one of those Disney like a House of Horrors. Like it just drifts onto the road. Scott screeches on the brakes, and she like pops her head out of the window at me, and then we swerve around her, and then we arrive at the house, and a deer like runs in front of us. Like that's literally my vision of how this is going to go.
It is going to be the most glorious experience. You mentioned to Bradley something about seeing a cow or what. We hadn't seen a cow, and I thought, oh my dear Lord, wait till he gets to Pine Ridge, Alabama.
Well, I also just, by the way, not that one more thing about Mobile. I did see Bradley. Where were we? That gas station that was the city.
Oh yeah, Buc-ee's.
Holy Scott, we don't have things like that here.
The Walmart gas station.
It was literally the Walmart of gas.
We didn't even
stations.
get
It was
out. We just
unbelievable.
drove around, and I'm like,
It was a good time.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
37 gas pumps out in front. How they do that.
no,
All right,
I think they have. I think the average Buc-ee's has 200 pumps.
is
It
that
was-
right?
it was
not individual
unbelievable.
pumps,
Sure,
but 200
sure.
like
Yeah.
So I guess it'd be 100 if there's two on each.
Yeah,
It was an unbelievable experience. I mean, also just the sheer engineering of the wide enough lanes to get by everybody. This was an incredible experience.
Absolutely. I'm going to shut it down. Thank you. We love you very, very much. If you need us, call us. I'm glad that you, at least so far, have not been arrested for any, thing that Bradley's done with a firearm that you have now touched and has your fingerprints all over in his console.
I put it inside of a Ziploc bag after he touched it. He's hanging on to it.
That's it. You've watched way
The
too
gun
many
don't fit. The
murder
gun don't fit. You
documentaries,
got to
haven't you?
quit.
Here, Aaron, touch this for a little while.
Sopranos.
In the back of your mind, you're like, okay, now I got him. All right, I'm going to shut her down. Guys, you are listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. If you want to see how to become the mayor of your village, or you want to go global with this thing, go watch Keep Hustling, the podcast. Keep Hustling with Mr. Aaron Gordon. His content is everywhere on social media. You want to talk about somebody that's done the damn thing. You want to talk about somebody that took Scott Howell's advice I said it yesterday. I'm going to say it again. Barnum and Bailey said it the best. What was it he said I posted? He said,
without promotion, something awful happens. Nothing. Which would actually be my favorite current business quote.
Yeah. Without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. Let that sink in for just a minute, guys. I don't give a damn if you got to fix somebody's watch. If you've got to.
That is tattoo worthy.
Absolutely it is. Go make money for your family, for your wife, for your kids' college fund, for your husband, for your parents and your in-laws like mine that are struggling out there today. Go make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. And I know I say that every week, but let that sink in for a minute, guys. You want to stay in this business for a long time, you need to write good business. Because if you write shitty business or you write stuff that's going to fall off the books next month, chances are you won't be here very long. And you got to make it to at least 5 years as an agency owner if you're going to stay in this thing for a lifetime. So with that being said, Bradley Flowers, Aaron Gordon, I love both of you very, very much.
Love you guys. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Guys, you are listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.